Hello there, and welcome to this episode of Ignition Time. Companies like Costco and Amazon are pushing for higher minimum wage and actually announcing that their minimum wage helps with more productivity, helps with more employee retention. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi pushes for higher minimum wage, and the leader of the House Republicans, Kevin McCarthy, says, get this, the Democrat stimulus plan is too corrupt and too liberal because only 9% of the $1.9 trillion goes towards spending. I'm going to dig deeper into this because there are some important nuances that our viewers and subscribers need to understand. So let's just jump right in. Let's start with a comment from Lindsey Graham from South Carolina about the minimum wage. This is what Lindsey Graham said today. There will be a time to look at increasing the minimum wage. During the pandemic, this is the worst possible time to impose mandates on small businesses. He said, adding this has got nothing to do with the pandemic. And he cited the Congressional Budget Office saying that it would lead to 1.4 million job cuts. And here's some incredible reporting from Jack Fitzpatrick, who's a Bloomberg reporter that covers Congress. The CEO of Costco, Craig Jelinek, is testifying, and what Craig said is that in addition to paying all employees at least $15 an hour, most Costco hourly employees get more than $25 an hour. And he says that it pays off in terms of productivity and commitment, meaning that employees stay with the company for a longer period of time, and employees average over 9 years with the company, according to Jelinek. Now, Lindsey Graham asked Jelinek a question. Can you see why a $15 an hour minimum wage would be a devastating blow for a restaurant in South Carolina? To which Jelinek replied, no, I cannot understand why it would be a devastating blow. Would you support $11 an hour minimum wage? Graham says. Now, this tells you that the fallback plan of the Republicans is $11 an hour. Keep in mind the conservative Democrat from West Virginia, Joe Manchin, there he is. What's up, Joe? Supports the $11 an hour. And the Democrat from Arizona, Kristen Sinema, also supports $11 an hour. So it looks like we may end up with $11 an hour minimum wage. And by the way, when Graham asked Jelinek, do you support $11 an hour minimum wage, the Costco CEO said it's way better than $7.25, based on this tweet on your screen from Jack Fitzpatrick from Bloomberg. And in brand new reporting from CNN, you'll see this headline of the CNN article on your screen. Costco will raise its minimum wage to $16 an hour starting next week, placing it ahead of rivals like Amazon, like Walmart and Best Buy. Folks, this will happen next week. The $15 an hour minimum wage that is proposed under the American Rescue Plan will take several years, 5 years or more. And what Costco is doing is implementing the $16 an hour minimum wage effective next week. Also, here's a phenomenal article on your screen on Motherboard from Edward Ongwezo Jr., where Edward writes, why Amazon is flooding the country with $15 an hour minimum wage? Well, number one, it's a PR strategy for Amazon. It makes them look good. It helps them to diminish their competitors, and it's essentially a way for them to try and hire the best talent. It's an anti-union tactic as well from Amazon, because Amazon does not want their workers to unionize. In the midst of all this, House Speaker Pelosi conducted a press conference today where she said, we can have a minimum wage bill. We must have a minimum wage bill. She was specifically asked about the opposition from important senators like Kristen Sinema from Arizona and Joe Manchin, the conservative Democrat from West Virginia. She simply said, this must be done. We have to get it done. Let's roll the tape and hear what House Speaker Pelosi had to say today about the $15 an hour minimum wage.
The parliamentarian does allow the minimum wage. What's your strategy to get it done? Isn't it going to be an uphill climb with Manchin, Sinema, others against it? Is there what's the path forward on minimum wage?
You know what, you're going to have to go ask that question on the Senate side. But we are very, very pleased with the case that has been made, and we will pass a minimum wage bill. We must pass a minimum wage bill. Again, when we had the majority in 2007, one of the first bills that we passed, it was part of our 6 for 06. In the first 100 hours, we passed the minimum wage bill, $7.25. It had not been passed in 11 years. Now it's even longer. After we passed it in the House, it went over to the Senate, and at the 22nd of January, a senator from West Virginia, Senator Byrd, put out a press statement supporting the passage of the minimum wage and how important it was to the people of West Virginia. I call that to your attention because he might be an unlikely advocate, but he was out there urging that. When we passed it in the Senate, we went out and had a big, I would say a rally, I guess, on the lawn, and I spoke for the House Democrats, and Senator Kennedy spoke for the Senate Democrats, and he said, you know what we have to do now? We have to pass the minimum wage, recognizing that already that was not enough for a family to live on. So here it is, that was 2007 in January, signed by President Bush, George W. Bush, what are we, 14 years later, we still haven't raised the minimum wage. Thank you all very much.
Now, as the Democrats are preparing to push for the American Rescue Plan and get the American Rescue Plan passed in the House of Representatives within the next 24 hours, the House Minority Leader, Kevin McCarthy, the leader of the House of Representatives for the Republicans, Kevin McCarthy, said that the Democratic stimulus bill is too corrupt, it's too liberal, only 9% of the money is going to be used for stimulus, and a significant component of the money is going to be used next year. He also said that Democrats don't want schools to reopen. Kids need to go back to school because otherwise it affects their ability to learn, it affects their grades, it affects their IQ, it affects their mental and emotional health. Let's hear from Kevin McCarthy and see him slam the Democrat stimulus plan as too corrupt and too liberal. Let's watch.
Now at Capitol Hill, where House Democrats plan to vote on that massive $1.9 trillion relief plan. That'll be tomorrow. GOP lawmakers, including our next guest, fighting back against the pork-filled bill, which includes funds for museums, high-speed rail projects, Silicon Valley, of course, is the place, and a bridge in New York for Chuck Schumer. House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy joins us now. Kevin, you know, the last relief bill got 92 votes in the Senate. You've had 3 other bills, rescue plans. It's got bipartisan support. Why does this one not have any?
Because this one wasn't even worked together. This one is not a bill that would focus on, which Republicans want to, about putting us back to work, back to school, back to health. This bill is actually too costly, too corrupt, and too liberal. Less than 9% of this bill goes to defeating this virus. Less than 9%. We have $1 trillion still sitting out there that's already been appropriated. The Democrats last night just blocked for the 3rd time the $64 billion that is sitting there that hasn't been used to go to open schools. And the money in this bill, it won't even get to the schools till next year, 95% of it. It's almost like they want to force schools to stay closed. And then they reward the states that will stay closed. I mean, I watched that interview in California for that young business owner that she's just crying of what Gavin Newsom has done to her. This bill would actually reward California and New York to stay closed over those states that actually opened up.
And I'm sure you know that you lead the nation in deaths, and you also are arguably the #1 most locked down state in the country with no light at the end of the tunnel. And Adam Carolla got into a bit of a death match with the Los Angeles Teachers Union because he said a study came out. Only 1% of transmission happens in schools. He says, you're cowards. Go back to work. Do you call them cowards?
The one thing we all know is the science proves kids should be in school. I've watched in my own community that 14%, it just came back, of more D's and F's. I just saw the pediatrician in Virginia, the association shows that more than 90% anxiety, depression in these children is doing much more than just leaving them back education-wise. I do not understand why we cannot open the schools. The science says it, and now you've got the President, Joe Biden, thinks opening schools, his goal is 1 day a week. You cannot allow this to continue.
Boy, oh boy, folks, the battle is heating up over stimulus. Let me know what you think. Please click the like button. Please subscribe. Please enable notifications. I promise you that will make Speaker Pelosi happy. There she is. How are you, Speaker? That will also make the House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy happy, because I know somewhere deep down in my heart that they both watch Ignition Time and they both click the like button. So I ask you to do the same. But jokes aside, please click the like button. It helps out the YouTube algorithm. Thank you so much for watching. I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next episode of Ignition Time. Take care. Bye.